Hi, everybody. Welcome back again to another episode of Age of Awæcnian, Soulful Stories Unveiled. And we love having an array of amazing epic humans to talk to and get inspired by and just dive deeper into their stories, their visions, their purpose, what lights them up. And I know I receive so much from interviewing people and feeling the resonance. We were talking about this earlier, this feeling that you get when you meet like-minded souls. Hey, Flea, and how are you feeling
Ah,
today?
absolutely. From what I've heard of the conversations and some of the plans that are wanting to unfold and the beautiful spread that has come out today, it's very inspiring. So I'm very interested to see where our beautiful guest is coming from and the lens and perspective and inspiration that is about to unfold.
Amazing. And without any further ado, you can see our amazing guest here, the wonderful Garrett Smith. And I met Garrett through another mutual friends of Flea and I, like Marcy, who is based in Africa, actually connected with Flea first. And we had amazing chats. And Marcy's also been on our summits and interviews. And we just love his mission and his vision and his big heart. And Garrett is also in this amazing group of leaders through Let's Shine, and we were just chatting about things. And then all of a sudden, it's like, hey, what do you do? And then other things unfolded. And I think just hearing Garrett's story, his passion, and seeing the things that you were doing, it was sparking these connections in my mind, linking you with my husband, Sean. And so Garrett is the Chief Technology Officer at Concentric Industries, and they do an array of amazing things, and we'll dive deep into it. But creating different patents to change the world, but also this big shift in using technology, innovation, creating plants, tapping into environment, waste, recycling, working with the land, tapping in the resources of the countries that they're working in. But they've also got this beautiful piece around education and informing the people that they're working with to continue that impact and that global change. So welcome, Garrett. How are you today?
Fantastic, Marie. Thank you. And Felicia, great to meet you too as well. And thank you for having me. It's a real honor.
Fabulous. And where are you tuning in from the world for the listeners that are tuning in and listening? And you're over in the States, is that
Yeah,
right?
I'm not too far. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, and I'm up in the Pacific Northwest now, up in the state of Washington, right on the still the same Pacific Ocean, but a little bit further north.
Yeah, amazing. And so, I loved connecting with you about this piece around concentric and this mission that you have. And you've got this beautiful, extensive background in engineering, and just tapping into like-minded leaders. And you've got like over 30 years experience. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do and why you love it.
Well, thank you. And yeah, you've certainly given me a great introduction there. And yeah, I think to grab it in a nutshell, and I'll kind of quote Simon Sinek, that some people might be familiar with, the Optimism Institute, where the idea is establishing a why. Why do we do things? You can do stuff, what you do, and you can be really good at it, but are you getting the results you're really after? And for me, it really came down to a thing over time, realizing that any engineering skills I had or any science I could apply, even if it was ecologically and economically advantageous, I really had to look at it and say, is it socially beneficial? Is it liberating people spiritually? Is it giving people freedom and really building what I call quality of life? And so that became kind of a benchmark that might seem strange from an engineering standpoint, but it's actually been a great fit, and it just kind of opens up a lot of doors. So it's really, that's what drove me. I do have an engineering degree and a professional engineering license in mechanical engineering, and ironically, a lot of power generation. My original background is in mechanical works, rotating machinery to get things to produce electricity. And from an early age, even before I got done with college, I had a great professor at Oregon State University. His name was Dwight Bushnell, the late Dr. Bushnell. And he always advocated for find better ways of doing things. And that just became kind of a sort of a credo or philosophy on things. And I just applied that, and that circle just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And And I appreciate being here because it's indicative that I think that does resonate with people who are like-minded and say, hey, we want to make things better, not just complain about what's wrong, but let's go fix stuff. And so that's kind of the mentality that went into it.
I love that. That ties in with my motto, which is there has to be another way. There's always another way.
Yeah. In fact, one of our trademark slogans, one of our technologies, actually, it's the only one in the world that takes garbage, municipal solid waste, and sewage input, two seemingly terrible things, and from.
Oh, I think we've just had you glitch.
Okay.
Can you just repeat what you just said? I was like, what is it that you do? Yeah. Repeat that
it's actually called the chemia process, the word from which we get the word chemistry. And it takes garbage and sewage as inputs, two seemingly. It produces electricity and pure water. And one of the slogans for that, and what made me think of it, is no waste wasted is part of it, but it's also that there is a way, and it's way better. And that's just kind of the philosophy we take to things. And so again, the engineering and the science is really just a tool to go get better results with things. And that's just one example.
I love that. And that, Flea and I have talked about like everything, even in life, everything you cultivate, these tools that we even gather as humans and the things that we do is never really a waste because we're learning, we're growing. And I love that you are actually physically working with the waste, with the things, and then transmuting that and I loved how you changed that word of using the word of chemistry as the base and that process of then creating electricity from that, creating purified air from that, because this potential of looking at what's around us and breaking it down to that cellular level, like it's all energy, isn't it? And I suppose
it really is.
Yeah. And I suppose then it's like looking at, well, if we talk about everything is energy, everything is vibrating at a particular frequency, whether it's in our bodies, whether it's the physical products around us, and this piece around there is a better way. There is technology out there. There have people done this in the past. You're doing it. It's like, well, how do we get this out more to the masses to improve that quality of life so that we can live more from our hearts, worry less about the other things that we do get worried about as humans. And so, Garrett, what has been some of, the inspiring things that you've seen in the work you've done over the last, 3 decades that has been like this tangible thing I've created or co-created with people in this particular country? This is the improvements that this community is seeing from the technology that you've done. I'd love to hear an example.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of them, and that's where we use this term polymathic, where you can look at multiple different disciplines and bring them together. Like I said, my background's in mechanical engineering, but I said, wait a minute, there's food production too, involves some microbiology. That might not be my discipline, but one of the things we've come together with is saying that we have energy and food and water and air. And in general, early in my career, I was responsible for writing a lot of air permits for power plants and dealing with the nuts and bolts of what technologies would clean up the air for regulatory compliance. And that got me down a path saying, what if we did that not just for compliance, but what if air and water could be cleaner coming out of power plants, factories, and farms than going in? And so a fun and exciting thing we ended up doing years later, and now it's become one of our initial, actually it was the first patent we ever applied for, or I did. And it basically takes livestock manures and food processing waste that are usually really problematic for society and transforms those into fertilizer products and clean energy to the point where there's no emissions from these facilities. And so one of the exciting things for me is whether it's livestock waste or municipal solid waste or anything, we take all of the fuels, it could even be fossil fuels like coal or oil, gas, and we capture all of the flue gases and produce, here's what's amazing, and that's, I'll answer your question on this one where it culminates, is that I looked around, it's hidden right in plain sight, the way photosynthesis works. It takes carbon dioxide and water with a photon of light to produce sugar, and oxygen or food. And so we basically, that's our carbon capture, is we took a different angle. We got on the other side of the equation and said, wait, this carbon dioxide is a driver for food production. And so at the same time, we're going to reduce air pollution and make something useful and beneficial. And we've applied that across the board to all of our processes. So it's fun when you can come into a place and people come to our facilities and say, well, where's the stack? Where's the flue gases? You know, and we say there really aren't any, because we capture all that and make something useful out of it. And, you know, that's just, you know, and one of the things we're excited about even work in Africa is you go to some, doesn't even have to be third world countries. There are some people that are without electricity, and there's great value there. So when you can impact a community with resources they already have or having a problem getting rid of, and you can give them, you know, light, like the stories of a light bulb for a child to be able to now read a book, and impacting their ability to learn, you know, you start to realize that people can create power with a purpose. And it's not about the industry, it's about that result you're bringing into a family or to a child or what have you. So yeah, again, energy, food, air, and water, they're ubiquitous. Everyone uses them.
The elements. And Flea's like, yep, these cards are making sense now. And I just had goosebumps with the pieces. Like, this is like the tangible impact that I love what you're doing. And Flea, what's come up with the cards there?
Yeah. So you're basically speaking my language in the scientific form, because I am very much, in a creator sense, the exact mirror of what you're saying there. So that idea that everything that is old is also useful. So nothing is ever wasted. A lot of the artworks and things that I create is all recycled canvas. It's like that actually came from a place of lack, where it's like, well, I want to be able to paint. I can't afford a canvas, but I've got this old picture here that I can transform. So nothing ever is like, it just gets reused. If it's no longer what it is now, it can become something else. And the texture and the passion and all the little bits and pieces that get to show through become part of that next creation. So it's this idea, that cycle. And the very first card was the authority card, which is that divine masculine, the scientific and the logical leadership practicality of that reason and solution. So if straight from the get-go, you were talking about this, I had this problem that I wanted to be able to solve. And that is that first card. And every single one after it is that material prosperity, that harvest that gets to happen when you work with that cycle and you see that waste is not it's not waste.
Yeah, exactly.
Because everything made is technically creation.
Yeah, and instead of looking at these things as liabilities, you start to have a whole worldview where everything's an asset that you can make something out of. And it changes the world. You start to see opportunity everywhere instead of problems. And it's just a mindset, absolutely. And you know, that's stuff. It's an important thing because it transcends engineering and science. You know, art and all forms of even health. You know, what we eat and how we live. It just all comes together. Where one of our other slogans is sustainability means thrive next time too. You know, do things that will also be prosperous the next time around. So absolutely, all of that goes hand in hand. And again, engineering for me, I had to over time realize, that might be my discipline and profession, but it's really just one of the toolkits, one of the tools I can bring in my toolkit to go solve problems.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I work the same way with fashion as well. So looking at measurements, dimension, how you can take your geometrical shapes basically and transform them into new things. So that idea that the minute you take a solid object, so when you start drawing like the human face, you've got to start with the shape. Everything is at that basic foundational, which was also the number 4 foundational element, that structure. So going back to the beginning, if it's created, it can be recreated into something else. If it exists, it therefore can be transformed or transmuted. So that idea of coming back to the basics, every single skill we have is in the basics, in our foundations, in those core primary prospects of numbers and shape. frequency.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And there is an element there of recycling. Another quick story, it's more of a philanthropic part of our company, but every one of these power plants or industrial facility has a whole bunch of, sometimes millions of dollars worth of equipment for maintenance that you collect in the process of construction. And years ago, I was able to, it was actually one of the funnest periods of my life in it, where I was working with a small group that took a flatbed full of broken bicycles, basically, that had been abandoned and everything. And we literally tore them down, reblasted them, painted, packed the bearings, and repainted them, powder coat, everything, and made them again. They were donated to children and other adults who needed bicycles. But I remember the whole process it's so cathartic to go through a process and restore something that was once broken. And then the whole philosophy of Concentric says, now what's really bracing is let's go make it better.
Yeah.
And so there's redemption there and restoration, and then there's like a thrill to even say, let's make it better now.
Yeah.
And so absolutely, that's exciting. Thanks for sharing that stuff, Lee. That's neat.
I love these threads and this piece around restoration, recycling, renewal. These are all threads and pillars within Awæcnian Academy, and tapping into people like yourself that can see things from another lens. Like, you get to actually physically, build the things. We love educating and bringing that to either adults or teenagers or young people. But this piece about, taking the old, making it new again, and we've got visions of like repurposing buildings, bringing the old industrial side, but also then putting like this stuff in there, like bringing the contemporary, bringing nature, and fusing those worlds together to repurpose, renew, but then also that sense of innovation that you also bring in using the tools, the skills, tapping back into that core foundation elemental and going, well, let's benefit everybody. And that big picture thinking is what I've loved, connecting with you and Sean as well, and your people and your team. And I know there's like a side of what you do that is fostered in like educating, the people that you work with. Because I think I met one of the ladies in our other group, and she's like, I work in education. I was like, oh, amazing. And I saw on your website, there's that facet there. And I think some of the philosophy that, because Flea and I, we still do relief teaching. We've got a base in education, but we've worked with an array of young people, of adults. And it's that piece of, let's take the bits that have worked, but let's like tailor it to the people, tailor it to the communities, tailor it to the land. Because obviously, working with First Nations people, the Indigenous people, but also knowing the socioeconomic of the background, whether the people are ready for that, and like how to build culture through innovation, through the physical, I think is amazing. So tell us a little bit more about that side of, Concentric and like the vision there, and what you hope as you're building these things on the ground, what else supports that in that vision?
Yeah, no, thank you. That's phenomenal stuff. And it makes me immediately think, when you mentioned First Nations or Indigenous people, is throughout Oceania, we were able to develop kind of some business plans and philosophies at many island nations, including the state of Hawaii, which is really an island nation, just turned state. But the idea there is you have a culture for generations and millennia who has practiced sustainability. And then through colonialism or other industry, people come in and kind of, in essence of maybe not abuse all of the resources, but exploit them and, get away from sustainability. And part of what we come in and say, hey, industry doesn't have to be bad. Again, what if air and water were cleaner coming out of power plants, factories, and farms? What if we used advanced aquaponics and tuned the frequency for plant growth and use 95% less land and water to create the foods we need, that we can use technology in a beneficial way? And I find that a lot of the people groups that used to practice sustainability and have felt it was taken away from them really respond to that even better, because again, it's like a restoration to the old ways. In Hawaiian, King Kamehameha had a phrase. He said, "Ua mau ke hoka aina I ka pono," and it's the state motto of Hawaii, and it says, the righteous, the health of the land, the prosperity of the land is preserved in righteousness, saying if we can steward things and cultivate this, that's going to prolong our civilization and our society. And again, people say, how can you talk that way as an industrialist? And I said, how can I not? You know, we have that responsibility right from the beginning. And again, I come in, we've kind of coined this phrase, the resonance. You know, you have the Renaissance and Enlightenment and Industrial Revolution. All those things can build up. We don't have to throw them all out. It's like, let's optimize and make things better and cleaner. And you mentioned education. We've kind of recently put together a concept called the Macaw Institute, and it's just an acronym that's misspelled, but like Google or something, but MAWCAWE, and it stands for medicine, agriculture, waste conversion, air, water, and energy. And we put that together as kind of an internal training institute where we could train people to work on our projects. But also just one thing I realized that even after I got out of college was that, you know, when I write a patent for something, it means that it's new. And right away, I'm like, I'd like to train people in this way of doing things. And yet people in the schools are learning what was maybe one day new, and now it's used. So we're trying to come in and say, let's teach people some state-of-the-art methods now, you know, in real time, and give them gainful work. And what's fun and we're finding is there's a concept out there too, and I encourage everyone to kind of look into this. It's called biomimicry. You know, how does nature do things already? And some of the greatest inventions literally are just saying, how can we harness nature and give it conditions so that it does what it wants? And that's a lot of what photosynthesis is like, but even steam and water and land and all these resources, really, that's, to me, that's the fine art of elegant engineering, is how can we just help these materials sustain themselves? We can use them for our own needs, but then use them again next time and not just exploit them. And so that kind of, again, comes into it. And that's what's fun, is that's a challenge. You know, you have to face the status quo and come up with a different answer sometimes. And that's why every new day is full of adventure and wonder, and say, hey, how can we do this better this time? And as you know, and I love your husband, Sean, is incredible. I mean, just even the work he's doing and just his whole approach. I was thinking to myself, what I love about him is that, see, and this gets into philosophy kind of thing, is there's more artists and musicians that don't know about science and technology than there are, say, engineers and technicians that know about, you know, music and philosophy. In general, a lot of people create these barriers, but why can't we be? Why can't people know about lots of things and interface all that together? Because we have a responsibility for that. And again, it takes an engineer to say, hey, my engineering skills are just a tool. You know, they're just a tool for, you know, helping people enjoy life and that sort of thing, but it doesn't define who I am. And so, you know, taking that energy and mass balance kind of thing to optimize these energy or resource systems is a skill set, but it's just a tool to get where we want, to create a sustainable life for people. And that whole approach has made me kind of unpopular sometimes, but I'd rather be unpopular with the status quo and make friends with folks like you. So, you know, it's worth it.
I loved your acronym, and I was about to say, but you're missing the one thing. You're missing the art in there, but not art in the sense of just painting, art in the sense of creation. And you did come back around to that is the basis behind that principle. And a lot of what we teach there is the mastery of self in that creation, because I know myself as an artist. I've actually been gifted with a lot of scientific, mathematical, geometrical knowledge as well that has come into this practice. And because of that awareness, I've been seeing, especially in school settings and things like that, that lack of connection to creation. So a lot of what you've described and your passion is actually coming from the fact that you've mastered your knowledge in this area of science and the expression of it that allows it to be creative. And this is in society,
I really
and a lot of a lot of what people are missing is that connection to their self-mastery and what we aim to teach, which is creative in its essence. It's the feminine, energy. It's that going with flow and seeing the creation in all possibility. A lot of people are going, spirituality, no, it means you don't want to work. It's the complete opposite. We want to work in our passion, which is productive and transformative. And that's the difference.
Exactly.
This separation is coming in. It's just the language.
Yeah, that idea of polarity, that you have a plus minus, masculine, feminine, all these different things. People tend to say, well, that's adversarial. No, they're very complementary. How can we put those things together to create a whole? And again, I appreciate how you said that, because many times I've told people, and this is true, that every one of the patents I have, there's 22 of them now, every one I've ever put together, really the inception of it, or at least the solidification of it, it came about in my mind when I was out either cycling or running. I do triathlons for a hobby, sometimes swimming, because my mind is clear, and that feeling of creativity. And I've had some people say, hey, math and science are boring. And I said, well, that's not the same math and science I know. Just like how some people say they don't appreciate, music or literature or art. And I say, well, what are you reading or listening to? Because the world is full of wonder from every angle. And the creative power that people bring is it transcends all the topics. In fact, I get excited to see what comes next. It's funny. I think even in today's world, we talk about technology and people instantly think microelectronics. They think that's all it is. But I'm over here with real bricks and mortar stuff, agriculture, saying let's advance things there. And I find it funny and ironic sometimes that our generation, essentially people alive in the last 50 to 100 years have seen, microelectronics and semiconductors and all these things come around. And yet they're still cynical that there could be a new way to do things. I'm like, wow, this, like Hewlett and Packard, or, Gates and Steve Jobs, and these people that had a vision to look forward and say things might be different. And I see tremendous opportunities everywhere. And you're absolutely right, Lee. It has to start with creativity.
Yeah. And I love that piece.
The desire to create.
Yeah. The desire, the passion, but then like the blending of the disciplines, the blending of the curiosity, the mastery of like you said, what are you reading? How can you take this lens at looking at things? Because, even to create what you have actioned and created was a vision, a thought, a plan, putting it down, writing it down, then actually feeling if that is aligned with you, feeling passionate, expressing it. And even the way you talk about this, I feel the expression, I feel the love of your vision, your purpose. And when we tap into that self-mastery, no matter what we do, you feel that in a person, and that is magnetic, and that is the way we connect. And this is the way, I suppose, children, teenagers, people in communities need to feel more of how we work together on the land, in jobs, in schools, in whatever it is, to better humanity, to better how we relate to each other. And even Sean, like his mind has always been very logical, mathematical, doing the things. But again, the creative side is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And we've all got these beautiful gifts and tools, and it's like merging the worlds, and I love what you're doing. And even with like your education, your training, my mind goes, imagine that in Australia, and we have, young people here with our academy working, affiliating with yours.
Yeah.
Like this is where collaboration and co-creation gets to then enhance and magnify.
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole thing of standing on the shoulders of giants. Some people who are so gifted in some area, whenever I see them, I'm like, hey, how can we work together? Because everybody brings their excellence in some field. And it's exciting, that power of creation and imagination, like Einstein even said, is way more important than knowledge. And it really is. Again, that thing of, this borrows, I think, from an old U2 song, but the idea that, what if we thought we had the answers, but it's the questions we had wrong, and that just opens up a whole world to say, well, what if this could be better? What if these presumed challenges that we think are impossible really aren't impossible. You know, like I think it was one of Matthew McConaughey's films, you know, I forget, Interstellar maybe, where he said they were doing something with the speed of something to synchronize. He said, that's impossible. He said, no, it's not impossible. Or he said, yes, it's impossible. It's necessary. You know, and so this kind of mindset, Chaim Weissman, a notable scientist and statesman, he had a memoir that his wife Vera wrote. It's one of my favorite books. It's the title is "The Impossible Takes Longer." You know, so it's just that worldview that you can expect to go find a way to get something done, and to me that just creates the fun edge on stuff. And like even you know the thing we just produced today and had the chance due to Sean's introduction about the iron boomerang project is phenomenal, and just had to take a completely different look at it, and we're thrilled with the solution we came up with. And when we put that just instant preliminary presentation together, the second slide's a tribute to Lang Hancock, who originally envisioned that back in the 1970s. To me, that's the power of creation, when someone envisions something and then starts to put legs under it. You know, like Thoreau said, great, you built castles in the sky, now put foundations under them. And that's to me what adds color to life. So I appreciate that these dialogues we have all the time. I think when I first talked to Sean, it was like an extra hour and we were still getting started,
Oh, and Flea and I have those conversations as well. But for those that are listening, if you're like wondering what Project Boomerang is, it's like this in Australia, this vision for a rail from one side to the other. And Garrett and Sean and the team have been bringing the ideas, understanding, and then there's magic that can happen, and there's lots of opportunities. So there's exciting things that could potentially happen down under. And it's revolutionary, and I'm excited.
And on that front, I mean, this kind of steal the thunder of the presentation, because I look at it again. The 4 things of energy, food, air, water. Okay, those are all integrated, but really, what we're after is economic, ecological, social, and spiritual success. And the 2 instant metrics for anything are economic and ecological. And again, we said, what if those weren't at odds with each other? What if things could be cleaner and more efficient? And so what we've come up with is a way that not only is far more economical, I mean, orders of magnitude more efficient, but it's also a zero pollution solution, including the operation of the steel mills and everything. So we're excited to offer that, because it represents exactly what we've been developed for, is to say there is a way and it's way better. And that's what we've identified. But again, the fun part is it started 1970s of 50 or more years ago, with a man who had a vision and said, hey, this could be good for Australia, and now it's time. So the ideas, the imagination, everything. And it's why I love artwork, and I love music. I love the Baroque. I mean, all the painting, sculpture, and the things like where an integrated thing like what Sean does with the art behind something alive is just phenomenal. It's kind of like the Orientals, Japanese with bonsai and stuff, and Sean's work is just all of that just amplified. It's phenomenal. So these are all great things, great topics. That I call it the never lose your sense of wonder.
That's beautiful. We've had a wonderland.
Yeah, it is. Why not? I think it was G.K. Chesterton said one time that, as adults, we're amazed that the water turned to wine. But as a small child, you're just amazed that the water in the river's flowing at all. And you can jump in off of a branch and get wet and come out. We need to keep that kind of childlike sense of wonder. And it's amazing what you can discover there. And when I bring that attitude into things like power plants and factories, and now, magnetic levitation trains and everything, people say, what are you talking about? And I said, what aren't you talking about? These are exciting things we can do to build up a nation, build up a people. And when we saw the resource discrepancy there, and I know from even having been to Australia in the past and conversations with people, I've been reinvigorated by each of you and by Sean, just in remembering that Australians are these people with vigor and charisma to say, hey, let's go do something. And I'm pleasantly reminded by that because, in the long run, that's really all it takes. If people have a can-do attitude, that'll move mountains, and that's what's fun and exciting to get around that again. So
I love that you spoke about play. It was something I wrote down yesterday because I started my teaching career in early childhood, and it's all play-based learning. And so many times I'd have the conversation with parents about, well, they're just playing with a doll or they're just playing with cars. Like, that's not learning. Whoops. And I just lost my phone. And part of then transitioning into high school was like seeing how limited play and imagination was possible. And it was like, wow, this is so disconnected and so different from the early years of learning into now this sterile form. And it all came about because of the risks of play. Okay, we can no longer have playgrounds because people break things or they hurt themselves. But what I wrote down was the actual benefits of play. In play, you learn language, you learn roles and responsibility, you learn connection and socialization and isolation. You learn about embodied practice. So that's every single physical muscle down to your fine motor. The minute you have to dress a doll or do something small, you're actually developing the wires in the brain that signal other areas of the body to then move. And that's that embodiment that happens in play. The independence and the problem solving, the security that they get through play, because you get to play with your identity, the imagination, the adventure, the investment, and the interest that actually happens. And the minute you take that out of schools, that play-based, that interest-based, like, what is actually curious about this room? I want to go into this room because that teacher looks like she's doing something phenomenal, and I want to learn how to do that. That is education.
And even
and that's how it should be. That's the vision I see in my head. And it's play-based. And it's because, like, I want to be in a room where I can paint and I can have fun and have other people come in and go, oh, what if you tried this? And what if you do that? Because that collaboration, togetherness, that project-based learning of, oh, what can you contribute? It's phenomenal. It is so team building. It's life building. It's confidence building, and it's play.
And it's like,
but it's still skill-based. Yeah, skill-based skills. Like, we're still producing things. We're still making things that can be sold. And
imagine like workplaces where it wasn't work and it was fun. And I know both of you have said, imagine things like this in big scale where people feel calm and relaxed, and you're not going to work because you're passionate and you're just being of service and doing what your heart wants you to do.
Well, and we have the power right now to build a world like that, and we're doing that. And it's a great analogy because, again, like for me, in essence, looking at this iron boomerang is kind of this task of looking literally at a continent and a nation's energy and resource policy. It's that big of a deal. And to be honest with you, I had a blast putting that together. It was so fun and exciting because for me, that was play. It was like, hey, I get all these pieces of a chess piece. I can look at a map and look at these things and the totals and put the numbers together and how could this work? And I look at it like play. This was fun and exciting that there's a way to solve this. And I think that attitude can permeate things, whether it's in engineering or art or teaching or something. I mean, it applies to everything. And that's what the understanding that's really all it is just the ability to go be creative and go look for solutions to problems. And that's what was so exciting. I mean, even in that one context and a lot of what I lie awake at night about is either thinking about answering some of these tough challenges. But the bigger thing, and why we kind of formed the McCaw Institute even, was how do you explain that to people? How do you tell people, hey, I have answers to all the world's problems. Here they are. Let's go work on them together. And that's why I just appreciate any chance to talk about these things. It's, kind of, there's an old Canadian rock band named Rush that the late Neil Peart, their percussionist and lyrics writer, had a song called Closer to the Heart. And it was, and the men who hold high places must be the ones who start to mold a new reality closer to the heart. And just that whole thing that it has to have heart, the heart and mind together. And, but we're created to create, and it's a phenomenal opportunity when you look at even work as an opportunity to go be creative and come up with answers that before people said couldn't be solved. And I'm excited for that. When you get into resources like energy, food, air, and water, you're making a big impact on how people live. And we've realized that, okay, now we can start. We can attack poverty and pollution. We can attack hunger and dehydration, disease, and climate. Let's fight those things. Now people can be free to really go do what they're designed to do. And that's kind of the again, gets back to Simon Sinek of why. Why do we do this? Well, because we want the quality of life. And these resources are needed, and that's why I just appreciate that. But it's for the finer things, the art thing. That's why I love like what all the stuff you guys are talking about. That's what life's really all about.
Yeah,
It's
sign us up. Where do we start?
Yeah.
We've been talking about communities, and one in particular is that the first place we can do this is somewhere overseas, because obviously Australians aren't willing to invest in this as yet. Not as forceful, but this idea that if we can create a sustainable community just by taking a simple building and creating a structure that means it's reusable, sustainable, those walls that we were talking about that could be completely hydroponic, somebody has to go and collect and pick those plants, and then you've got all this food to create. You've then got a school that's teaching culinary arts of what you can do with foods and flavors and things like that. But you really honed in on how I learn, because people are like, oh, you can do anything. And it's like, yeah, because I'm always inquisitive about, oh, what can this do for me? It's like somebody's on a website and it's like, oh, Zoom does this. I want to see what else it can do. It can, okay, yeah, I don't like that now. I want to use this one because it does more.
Yeah.
And I just learned through the inquisitive nature of, oh, what do these things do? Okay, yeah, I've worked out what they do now, and all of a sudden I know how to use everything, and I don't really know how to use everything, but I know it enough.
Yeah, Lee, that's exactly what happened with us was, here I was building power plants and people complaining about the air pollution and the water pollution, and farms, same way. People complain about farms and their pollution and waste. And I started to put it together and said, wait, what if we could solve problems for one and solve for the other? And people say, you can't do that. But that's kind of what this consiliency is solving multiple problems at once. And we found that there's an elegance in there, kind of Occam's razor. You get these simple solutions that solve multiple problems all at once. And I find the deeper I go in that, I find new ones around every corner. But it had to start with saying, what if? What if there's an answer out there? And then expecting there to be an answer. Of how does, water and air that people need, how can we clean it? And what if the allowable pollution level is zero, instead of some tolerable amount that some, government decides is okay? What if the allowable level is none? And then all of a sudden you can achieve that and actually be more profitable at the same time. And then our intent and our whole business model says, then let's take those profits back. We're already solving major problems. Now let's take those monies back and keep attacking them and solving more. And obviously education and healthcare and all these other things. In fact, what started a lot of this to catalyze it, and I say this in one of the opening speeches, it was the book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins. And he wrote the book maybe 20 years ago or so. But in it, he was explaining how it would cost about $50 to $60 billion a year to solve hunger and women's health problems, longevity stuff for, child mortality rate. And I looked at that and I said, I remember all those, episodes where $20 a month would help a child somewhere. And I realized 50 years later, it's not really working. But when I read that about John Perkins and this model, a vision was quantified for me. I said, what if we could cultivate a business that was that big and could generate revenues to go headlong after those problems? And then we could have cash flows then to go after education and art and these things to support those things. And it's just a different mentality, but I find it's one that's, it's kind of like when you break through the clouds, climbing a mountain. You're trudging along and then all of a sudden you're above the cloud line and all you see is sun, and it's worth it. And that's kind of where we're headed. And it's exciting. And finding like-minded people like this. And my attitude is, how can I serve you? How can I serve Australia? It's not about what can I get out of it. It's how can I apply these skills to go make the world a better place. And it's the doors keep opening all over the place. So it's fun.
Oh, I'm excited. You're coming to us. You're going to come visit us at some point. This is
Yeah.
happening. It's like a no-brainer. I know you've been planning it, but it's like a no-brainer. Of the interest. There's a like win-win-wins. There's so much growth and opportunity, but it's also that longevity and that vision for,
Yeah.
not only Australians, but there's a ripple effect out, that you've done in other countries as well. But it's like this bigger vision of like,
Yeah.
let's think
Yeah.
big.
Yeah, you'll see in the presentation we just put together that these are ramifications. This will be a globe-changing initiative. And I'll laugh. I got to tell Sean, because I told him I was going to do kind of a Queensland energy policy, review, which I still am, which is great. The information I have is phenomenal, but that iron boomerang is so significant that I kind of wanted to keep it separate, at least for the introduction. But it's fun. Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. Definitely. And it's exciting. It's good work, and it's going to bless and benefit a lot of people. And, just very exciting, very excited to be part of it. And I appreciate your guys' program here in this dialogue, because this is really what it's all about. People can talk money, finance, industry, whatever, but does it improve quality of life? And that has to involve, ecological benefits too. And that's why we're thrilled. This is a type of thing that has great cash flow, great profit margins, huge savings, huge benefits that way to Australia. But it really truly is a system with zero pollution. And that's a fun thing to be able to talk about and offer. So, and I think there's still, I love the Australian spirit. It's been very refreshing to me just having conversations with you guys and remembering that. Africa's hungry right now. Some parts of the world are kind of complacent, just don't think anything's possible. And it's like, well, how can you say that? But there's, what is it now? 8.8 billion or 8.6 billion is the global population. I mean, that's a lot of people in need. And so there's a lot of work to do. And that's where it starts is, finding those things that have multiple benefits. And it just has become kind of a battle prize. Like, okay, you can succeed in one area, but have you succeeded in all of them? And if you haven't, let's work on it and go find a way to, have that economic and ecological part. One of the slides we threw in, there was a quote from the old architect, Buckminster Fuller. He said, if you want to change a paradigm, you can't just kind of subtly make a change. And you kind of can, but he's making a point saying, you got to come up with something that just makes the status quo obsolete. And that's for us, if we can be cleaner and more profitable, then that jobs versus environment or economy versus ecology debate just is obsolete immediately. And I've opened a lot of speeches with that. And some people get up and leave, but you know what? Some people stay. And they come up and say, hey, how can we do that? And those have become lifelong friends and partners and, people in that. And that's what I feel about you guys. And I know that about Australia. Like I said, I told one of my friends here, I told Talita, the one from South Africa, I said, you got to help me because I'm really gullible. I'm addicted to rugby, and I'm probably going to want to go get suckered into a game again somewhere in there, but I'm getting too old for that, but we'll see. It'll be fun.
Oh my goodness. It has been so refreshing to just even have you on, and passionate and with your expertise, but your big heart. And it's been, I think, refreshing for us to even just hear amazing people doing this work, wanting to expand, and in the masculine as well. I feel like there's a lot of amazing women doing great work, and I'm sure that there are men out there, but I'm like, where are they? Where are the divine men that are here to in brotherhood, in sisterhood, for humanity, doing the things? So it's been so.
They're right here.
They're right here. We're here. So if you're listening in, connect with us. And, Garrett, if people want to come and connect with you, how can they find you?
Yeah, just concentricindustries.net is our main website. My email, just Garrett, GARRETT @concentricindustries.net. And we do have a lot of international partnerships, some additional websites being built. I talked to Sean. I'm pretty sure we're going to do one there in Australia, cater to some work there. We do have a partnership in Oman, which is an exciting thing up in the Middle East, across North Africa. We just opened branch offices in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and up in Panama, and where we're doing some international banking structure there. Very exciting stuff in terms of decentralized autonomous organization, making the company and everything about it available to the people, which is exciting for us, kind of the decentralized finance model as part of it. We also have up in Delaware, United States, a public benefit corporation, which the guys laughed and said, that's exactly what we are. And said, yeah, you bet. So we have a few different structures, but right now, concentricindustries.net is a good way to get a hold of me. And then I'm happy to answer email and any of that stuff. And I'm still kind of old school on some of the social media. I like LinkedIn a lot. You can find me there, but I'm on a bunch of the different channels. I do practice some short form content, speeches, even on TikTok, and just trying to get a little better at all this stuff. But so yeah, I'm just happy to be in touch with folks, and we're rapidly. I've always laughed, if you count the Georgia islands, we are, have a presence on all 7 continents, in one way, shape, or form over the last 30 years. So, we're all over the place. And one of the things on a business front is we were mainly an engineering construction firm for these last 3 decades. And along with a lot of other folks, the COVID time kind of stopped a lot of work. So we restructured out of that to be an owner operator, because historically our biggest competitor was to do nothing. Clients would say, cities would say, we don't have the funding. Our Fortune 500 clients would say it's non-core business, or we have a permit to dump the wastewater in the river and don't have to do this. So we restructured to take this own operate model and pull in other financial partners and really spearhead the projects from that angle as well. And that's very exciting, kind of opening a lot of doors for us. So we're all over the place, and catch me if you can. I'm always on the move, and I'm looking forward to coming back down to Australia. In fact, I thought about this. It was actually on July 4, which is Independence Day for America. You guys, it's July 3rd now, but July 4, 1990, I was in a rugby match in Sydney. So it's kind of a welcome back to Australia for me to be talking to you guys on, essentially July 4. What's it, 34 years later. So I'd like to say I'm 34 years younger, and I still feel like I'm 17. So here we go.
Love it.
It doesn't change.
Yeah, it's all in the mind.
That's it. Yeah. Oh, I love that. And Fleet, any final thoughts?
Oh, no, this is exciting. It's the dream unfolding. And for me, these conversations are just more and more evidence that it is time for us to start trusting our own intuition rather than the outside hogwash that is filled in, because the more we listen to ourselves, the more it does become our reality. I had these dreams a few years ago. It's like, this is just how it needs to be, and this is how I would do it if I could snap my fingers and create it. And the more I talk to people, the more I can see that unfolding. And it is about the longevity of life, because I want to know that when it comes to my retirement age, that I'm safe and I'm secure, and I get to enjoy those years with the people around me and not feel fear.
I love what you said there, the word get. I was thinking that there's a phrase in triathlons where people say, oh, what are you doing? Well, I'm working out. I have to go run, or I have to. That's time out a second. You don't have to do anything. You get to do it. And that's the thing on this restoration, on making things better. I appreciate both of you, consider you strong friends in that regard, because like you just said, Fleet, we get to do this. We get to grow old together. We get to go have a vision. We get to go make the world better. And I'm excited for that, because I know it might not seem like it to you guys and stuff, but I'm telling you, from a world view, that you guys represent that fighting spirit that is still what Australia is made of. And so we're excited to come there and bring that, the influence. One of the slides, we show the map. Australia's got access across the Indian Ocean to Africa, right there to Southeast Asia, across the Pacific. It's really a very strategic location. It just, you had to look at the map a little different, and it's right there, hidden in plain sight. So we're excited there, and I look forward to meeting both of you soon in person. And please do give my best to Sean also. Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, this has just lit up our morning. We have such amazing conversations with all the people in our fields, but this has been so wonderful just to even get to know you, feel more of your vision, and it's for the world. And this, the big thinkers, it's so in alignment, and you're doing practical things and on the land with the people. And this is how we get to change the world. And folks, if you're listening in, if you want more of these conversations where you feel that light in your heart, we have multiple summits coming up. So they are tailored to different people. So we've got our beautiful turnkey transformation summit in August. Flea, do you want to tell them just quickly about that one, those that are still here listening with us, because they're so engaged?
Absolutely. Turnkey transformation. It's literally that. We are taking those turnkey moments in our lives and we're showing you how you can actually transform your reality by taking charge of the track. You're the key master. You get to design your life. And, most of us have this same dream of a place where we're safe, secure, where we're accepted. And this is something that we do get to create. And with the beautiful speakers that are coming together, they're going to share the stories, the tips, the tricks, the things that we do to take those steps to make the first move, because that's ultimately what we need to do. It is a choice that becomes the decision that makes the rest of our life better.
Yeah, I love that.
Right on.
And those,
Fantastic.
yeah, it's so exciting. And we've got our speakers growing. And with that theme, again, it's a lot of the spiritual side of things, but also grounded in the body. So it's like blending the worlds. And if you're keen, come and join us. We also have a really beautiful Mum Summit that's underway, happening on October. So mums, if you're listening in, tune in, share your story with our beautiful affiliate in India, Shikha Khanna. And we're excited to just be sharing the power of the voices of the mums and dads. So there's a dad panel there too. So, Garrett,
education starts at home.
That's it.
Hey, I wanted to conclude this was seemingly random, but I wanted to get it on record, and both of you look it up. You probably haven't heard of it. There's a short children's book from years ago. This relates to everything, kind of ties it all together, called Andrew Henry's Meadow. It's written by Doris Byrne. It's one of those, 30-page books with every page has, 2 or 3 or 4 sentences, but artwork on it. Phenomenal book. Look it up. It's not in print anymore, but you can get digital audio versions. I'll email you the YouTube one, but related to all this about creativity, imagination, a positive outlook, everything, called Andrew Henry's Meadow by Doris Byrne. Really amazing story. And just you two, all that we talk about kind of made me think of that. And it's inspirational in that way. And it's a great book. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh, thank you. And that's a beautiful segue to our last summit for the year, which is a youth empowerment summit, where it's like, parents, coaches, facilitators, and young people. Parents that are listening in, if you have a young person that has a voice and wants to be heard by adults that actually care and listen, then come and join in conversations like this. Imagine young teens having conversations like we have, telling us what they want for the world that they live in, and ideas that maybe we have never thought of. Like, let's have more conversations. But I love that little segue, and that's happening in November with our beautiful affiliate Bronwyn Bergen with Star Kids Coaching. But there's so much beautiful potential opportunities to have dialogue, to connect, to share story, to integrate all of our wisdom together. So if you're keen, come in, connect with us. Check out our website at www.awæcnianacademy.com, AWAECNIAN.